really remember back that far. Honestly, for the last 22, 23 years now, triathlon has been my life, and it's where all my great friends are. It's where I met my husband, who I've now been married to for 14 years. I've been going out with him for 20 years, so I don't really know a life or remember a life outside of triathlon. It's such a huge part of me, and I truly love the sport. Yeah, look, I've always been active. I think I was born to do sport. Obviously, my mum told me from a very, very young age I could never sit still. I was always like a bean jumping all around the place, and I was always into everything. So I was the sort of person that had to try every single sport that was available. And I've been like that all my life, all through school, all through high school, all through university. And I think finally in university I found a sport that I truly loved. I loved everything about it, you know, not just the training, but the travel, the racing, the social side of triathlon, which not every sport has, but triathlon has such an amazing social side to it as well. So it was the perfect combination for me. Australia, obviously, we had Greg Welch, who's very, very famous. He won Ironman Hawaii. He was the first Australian to win Ironman Hawaii. He's a good friend, and he's always been an inspiration because he was an amazing athlete over all distances, not just the Ironman distance. Michaela Jones was one of the greatest female athletes we've ever had in Australia. And then there's been athletes overseas, Heather Furr, Paula Newby-Fraser, who's also one of the long-time favourites and one of the best triathletes we've ever seen. It's not that I put these people up on a pedestal, I just really respected them because not only did they treat the sport professionally, but they also enjoyed it. You could see that they absolutely loved it. They weren't just doing it for a profession or for a job, they loved what they did, and that came out in their racing. I've been asking myself that question actually quite a bit the last year. You know, with the distance that we're doing on the weekend, which is 70.3, which is the half Ironman distance, it's such a fantastic distance. It's a distance that I can turn up, I can race hard, and I know that within 2 to 3 days I'll be recovered. With the Ironman distance, which is the full distance, that's getting a little harder for me. You know, I'm turning 43 at the end of this year, and I must admit, for the first time ever, this year I've decided that, you know, once I get to 50 Ironman distance races, I might call it quits on the Ironman distance racing, not on racing triathlon. Okay. But just that distance does really take a lot out of you, and not just physically but mentally as well. And it takes a lot longer to recover. And the problem is I love to race, and when I do the Ironman distance racing, I have to take time off afterwards, and you know, I miss my racing. So we'll see. Look, we'll get to 50 next year, and then we'll reassess then and see how the body's holding. It's actually been reasonably similar. Both my husband and I have been based in a place called Marbella in Spain, which is incredibly hot. Like it's mid-30s to high 30s every day, but it's not very humid. So it's a lot different to the weather here. You know, obviously the weather here, it's not as hot here, but it's a lot more humid, and that's really tough. But the only difference this year is that I just raced an Ironman distance race, Challenge Roth, in July. And that race was a lot further apart than this year. So last year I had a little bit longer in between races, whereas this year I don't have so long. So it's going to be interesting to just see how my body's coping after doing such a long race and now trying to back it up again and do this race on the weekend. Well, always my ultimate goal is to have fun. It always has been ever since I first started. So I want to have fun with it. I want to make it to the finish line. They're the two 100% goals I have every time I race. Of course, I would love to finish on the podium. This will be my 3rd time racing here now. First year I finished in 1st, last year was 3rd. So I would love to finish on the podium again, but it's quite a good field this year. There's a couple of girls that are coming this year that weren't here last year. So it's going to be tough, but you know, I'll do whatever I can on the day to try and make it onto that top 3. A few minutes before the race, that's normally the worst time of the race. It's always when you're panicking, it's when you've got butterflies, you just want the gun to go off so you can get on with it.
Really, even if you hold 15 titles, you still feel those stuff?
I get butterflies just as much now as I did when I first started. And you know, that's the reason I know that I should still be racing. I think the day I arrive to a race and I no longer have those butterflies is the day I know that it's time to retire. I think butterflies are a good feeling. It means you're excited, you're anxious to race, you want to get out there and do your best. So yeah, I make sure on race morning that I have a little bit of a warm-up. I make sure all my gear's set up, and then I like to go off and do a little bit of a run on my own where I can just concentrate on myself, and then a little bit of a swim warm-up, and then ready to go. I don't like much time sitting still. You'll see some people before a race and they'll be sitting there just eyes closed, almost meditating. I can't stand that. That's not for me. I need to be active, otherwise I just the excitement builds up too much. Look, it's interesting that the swim is fantastic. So I can't say enough good things about the swim. The swim's wonderful. We swam on the course today and it was just magic. Beautiful, clean water, lots to look at, so many amazing fish and sea life. The bike ride last year, look, personally for me, I would like it to be a little tougher. It's a little too flat for me. Wow. But, I rely on my cycling strength, so I like a few hills. But in saying that, the crowd's aligned with people, it's great road surface. So it's still a great bike course. And the run, last year the run here was brutal. It was so hot and it was so windy. Like normally if you get heat, you don't get wind. You rarely do you get the both together. So I found last year's run very, very difficult. But that's why we do it. We don't do it because it's easy. So I don't mind what the day throws at me on Sunday. I'll deal with it. Really good question, and I think my answer will be something that most of the athletes here, regardless of whether they're professional or age group, the thing that keeps me grounded is because I didn't actually start racing triathlon as a professional. I started as an age group athlete, like every other athlete here. I never even dreamed or envisaged that I would make a career out of this. I just wanted a sport that I enjoyed, that I could keep fit, lead a healthy lifestyle. And the thing that attracted me the most to triathlon, as I said before, was the social side of it. It wasn't just about getting there and smashing out laps in the pool or getting out there and smashing yourself on the bike. It's going for coffee afterwards. It's having breakfast after a really hard swim squad with friends. And that was the aspect of triathlon that attracted me the most. And it's something that I've kept all the time. For example, tomorrow, we've organised a ride at 8 o'clock in the morning. Anyone can join in. And afterwards, we'll all come and have breakfast. And I think I've never lost sight of that. I've never lost sight of where I started in the sport and where I am now, and that's what's kept me grounded. And I think the reason that I've had such great longevity in the sport is because I've kept that sense of balance. I've got that balance of working hard and also still enjoying it and having fun with life. I mean, we only have one life, so you've got to make the most of it. You know what? You learn a lot about yourself from both. And in fact, if anything, you learn more about yourself when you lose a race or when a race doesn't necessarily go the way you wanted it. You can actually learn a lot more about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, how you deal with it. Wins are fantastic. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. Everyone loves to win. Everyone loves to get on the podium. But some of my greatest lessons that I've learned have been when I've failed, or you never really fail, but when I've not reached the goals that I actually thought I would reach. My very first Ironman distance race, which was Ironman Australia, back in 1999, I actually didn't finish. So my very first Ironman race, I didn't finish. And I learned so much about myself and about the race and about what was required. And at the end of the day, the most important thing was to enjoy it and to get to the finish line. And there are two things I didn't do that day. I didn't enjoy myself because I put too much pressure on myself, and I didn't get to that finish line as a result. So I learned two lessons that day that I've taken with me every single race I do. So yeah, winning or losing, as long as you can take something positive from it, then it's a win-win situation. Well, I'm lucky that my husband is also a professional triathlete, so he totally understands the time and commitment taken. And we do this together. We travel the world together. We live our dreams together. So it's been wonderful for the both of us, and we've had such a great life with triathlon. My parents and my family, my sister and her boyfriend, they love triathlon too. So they don't race, but they follow me around the world. My parents were just in Europe with me for my last race. Wow. So they love following it. It's been a passion of theirs for years. And my sister, every time after a race, will ring or email or Skype and we'll talk about what happened in the race. You know, she'll come and see me, watch me race when she can. So it's a real family affair, and most of my friends are triathletes, so it's perfect. You know, it's all about taking steps that you're comfortable with. I mean, you don't necessarily have to say, okay, one day I'm going to do an Ironman. Join a swim squad, join a cycle group, join a run club, get yourself a triathlon coach. But honestly, you'll soon realise once you do a few training sessions that it's not that hard to achieve. You've just got to have the willpower and the patience and the determination. And honestly, this sport is open for everyone. It's not an elite sport. It's a sport that is made or designed for everyone, from the slowest to the fastest. And that's why I love it too. It's all inclusive. It's not just a professional sport. It's for everyone from all different walks of life. Fit and healthy, so you're leading a great lifestyle. You get to eat more, so that's a great thing. You know, you get to have dessert and not feel guilty. So you know, there's nothing better than doing an Ironman distance race or the half Ironman distance race on the weekend. And you know, one of the greatest things is you race on the Sunday, then that Monday morning you get up and you're tired and you don't feel so good, you're a bit stiff and sore, but you come down for a nice big brekkie with friends and you can eat whatever you want and not feel guilty. It's a wonderful feeling. But you know what, the greatest thing you get out of it is just the satisfaction of knowing that you've achieved something that you might have thought was otherwise impossible. And just the feeling that gives you and the confidence that gives you, that you can then take into other facets of life, it's amazing. It really I've seen it change people. It really does give them the confidence they need to tackle anything. Loud, crazy, extremely talkative.
Yes.
All right, so watch Ironman Philippines 70.3 live on sunstar.com.ph.